Hey, Film Vaulters. Hey, Film Vaulters. Welcome to the Film Vaulters. I'm Mitch Burns. I'm your host. This week, I'm here with Film Vaulter Joseph Grenier. Joseph, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Mitch. Thank you so much. I appreciate the invite, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to being on the Film Vaulters, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm so happy to have you here. It was so funny because you kind of reached out to me. Like you added me and you said, "Oh, like I love what you do with the Film Vault. Like it's great stuff." And I was like, "Perfect. Let's get you on." You're like, "Wait, what?" And no, it worked out. It worked out great. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of caught me off guard, and I'm like, well, I guess I slid into his DMs, and then now I have an invite to the show now. But yeah, when you sent me that invite, I couldn't say no. I love what you do here, and I love the show. So
Oh,
yeah,
thank
looking
you.
forward to it, man. Thanks.
Thank you. So, as always, my guest picks a topic that the Film Vault podcast has done over its 20-year tenure. And today, Joseph, for some reason I wrote Jeremy there, Joseph has chosen top five stabbings, which we will take a stab at later in the show. But first, as always, I like to get to know my guest. I have a few questions so we can get to know this film vaulter a little bit more. Someone who has been listening to the show for how long? How long have you been listening, do you think?
Oh, shoot. Since 2015, which I guess is about 8 years now, which
Okay.
feels weird to say. It's been that long, but yeah, I discovered them just kind of randomly. I know a lot of folks kind of follow the Adam Carolla show, like Brian Path or the Loveline Path. I was just bored one day, and I just searched on podcast movies, and I was going through those or through the list on like Apple or yeah, Apple Podcasts, and I didn't find anything, so then I changed it to film, and the Film Vaulters was like one of the top three, or I'm sorry, the Film Vault was one of the top three, and I gave it a listen just randomly, and so yeah, I mean it just worked really well, and during the time of my life when I found it too, I was getting out of the Navy in Hawaii, and and with part of that, sorry, I'm not trying to go too deep into that, but
Yeah.
I was off the ship that I was stationed on,
Mm.
um, just due to for like clerical processing out, to go back to your normal life, and my boat went out to sea, so all of my buddies were gone, so I found myself with a bunch of free time,
Oh
and
wow.
I just had a deep dive into the I guess at the time probably like 6 months prior, probably into about the 2014 era of Film Vault, because I had so much free time on my hands and just listening to old episodes. So I guess, I mean, I started in 2015, but I've been caught up with like Decemberish of 2014. I guess would be the earliest episodes I've listened to.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, that's cool. My next question was going to be like to tell us a little bit about yourself. So you're out of the Navy now, you're doing something else or still
Yeah,
part of it?
no, I'm out. I was I was a one and done. They call them, one enlistment. Out of high school, I wasn't going to college, so I figured I'd try the military. And a Navy recruiter talked to me, and he did the whole recruiting thing of lying. I guess no offense if there are any recruiters listening, but there's some tricks there, and so he convinced me to do the whole submarine thing. So I was a sonar tech on a submarine, listening to
Wow.
noises, and
Wow.
that was kind of heavy, just being underway on a submarine. So I didn't want to
Yeah.
do it more than one enlistment. So yeah, that was in 2015. I got out, and then found the Film Vault, and then went to school for a while, and then now I'm actually a PR specialist working for the government again, for the U.S. government, I should say. I know you're Canadian, for the Department of Veterans Affairs. That's what I'm
Oh,
doing now. So
well, that's awesome.
yeah,
I was gonna say thank you for your service, and I do say that, but I mean, it's again, it's not my Navy, but you know what,
yeah,
it's all towards the fight, the cause, whatever. But
oh yeah.
that's really interesting. So, favorite sub movie then? What's your like? You have to have one.
Ooh. Yeah, so it's difficult because a lot of submarine movies are not realistic at all. Like, I mean, one of
Yeah.
my favorite examples is of a not realistic one is Crimson Tide with Gene Hackman and Denzel
Yeah.
Washington. Are
Right.
you familiar with that one?
Yeah.
There are scenes where Denzel Washington is going on like a jog in a submarine, you know, like working out before his shift, and that gets just my blood boiling. I'm like, no, you can't do that. No, that's not true. You know, so
Why? Just
usually
because
there's
there's no
more.
room?
Yeah, there's very limited space.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk too much in depth about submarine operations and stuff, just
No,
because
no,
we're,
no.
it's a film podcast. But
Yeah.
the class of submarine that they were on, we call them boomers. They're ballistic missile submarines in that movie, and
Right.
and they are larger, but I mean, the submarines are still extremely cramped spaces, very claustrophobia inducing, and
Oh yeah. I
not a
bet.
lot of
Yeah.
room for things. So like I wasn't on those. I was on a smaller class. We called them fast attack submarines, and we didn't even
Wow.
have our own bed. We would share two beds for three sailors, basically, and we had a three 6-hour watch rotations. Sorry, we're getting really into the weeds with this, but basically you were either on watch sleeping or like coming off of watch, doing your job. And so you would shift between those beds for whoever was sleeping. So, I mean, we didn't have that kind of space. So seeing
Wow.
movies where you have a huge amount of space on a submarine is just unrealistic. But
Yeah.
I guess for ones that I do like, U-571, I'm a really big fan of that one. I know that's a World War II based one, so I don't know how accurate that is because I obviously did it a lot later than that. But that's probably my favorite. If you had to ask me, like, hey, like you did, what's your favorite sub movie? I would say that one. Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen that one, so I'll have to watch it. I did the whole Das Boot thing when I had COVID last year. So the whole 6 hours or 5 hours or whatever it is, and that was a lot. So. But
the runtime has always scared me away. I've never even seen Das Boot. Everyone tells me that it's good. I've heard from other guys that I served with that that's like the most realistic depiction of at least what they told me, like times of extreme stress to times of extreme boredom. I haven't seen it. That's just what I've been told,
It's
but that
a bit
runtime just scares me away, man, especially with the extended cut. I'm like, I just need to rip the Band-Aid off and do it one of these days. I sound like I'm, crazy or something, but yeah. But yeah, U-571's good if you ever want to give it a shot for a kind of a World War II style movie. It's a pretty rad one.
I just wrote it down. I will definitely watch it. So, your favorite sub movie? You told us that. What are some of your favorite movies or directors of all time?
Sure. Well, my favorite movie of all time is Goodfellas. I mean, gun to my head, that's just the one that I'll watch. If I see it on TV, it doesn't matter if it just started like 10 minutes ago or where there's, an hour left. I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, on TV. That's my next hour, 30 minutes, however long's left in the movie. I love me some Goodfellas. Director-wise, I would say Catherine Bigelow. I'm a huge fan of hers.
Yes.
I really like her stuff. James Cameron, too, for what he kind of does. I'm a big science fiction nerd, and I grew up with Terminator 2, Aliens, so that has just been imprinted on my brain, I guess. There's another director that I like quite. Oh wait, I didn't see that. What was that?
Oh, is
that a Queen Alien?
Yeah, the Alien. I have so much Alien shit. I'm wearing an Alien shirt right now, so
man, you got the Xenomorph shirt on.
Yeah, I'm nuts with Aliens, so I'm right there with you.
Oh yeah, that's hands down my favorite just film franchise. Even Prometheus, I know a lot of Alien fans did not like it. An Alien Covenant, I'm here for it. I know they're talking about a TV series in the works. I'm here for that. Anything that features that story world, I'm there for.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for it.
I actually just got into all the audiobooks. I've started reading them or listening to them at work, and they're just great. Some of them, and they're actually like canon. If you care, some of them are actually like canon. So those are the ones I've listened to, and just build on the world. Right, it's so interesting to me. So yeah, definitely something to check out if you're a nerd like us.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge nerd. Yeah, I've read one of them. I had the opportunity to read one. and I know it's canon, you know, I think it took place in between the events of Aliens and Alien 3. I feel like we're going down a deep rabbit hole, and now we're talking about books, but they're great for anyone listening. They're fantastic, and you're into that. They're cool.
There's your cat.
But yeah, outside of director, you see my cat?
I was waiting to see if a cat would hop up there, but I think it was already there the whole time.
Yeah, she's a sneaky one. She's kind of new. We've only had her for about 3 months now. Nice. She's great though. We have her, and then her bigger brother, who's also a tuxedo cat. He's asleep in the other room. So if you see him in the background,
that's awesome.
Apologies for the distraction.
No, I love cats.
Oh, heck yeah, man. But where were we? Oh yeah. Other movies and directors I like. I'm a huge fan of the Safdie brothers. Good Time is like probably my second favorite movie of all time. I love Good Time. Yeah. Uncut Gems is great too. But whenever anybody asks me about, you know, or wants to bring up Uncut Gems, I always follow it up with, have you seen Good Time? Because that's just, oh man, it's great. But I'm kind of all over the place with movies and stuff. I feel like like I said, I love science fiction movies and any kind of mixture of like sci-fi action, sci-fi horror, any of that kind of stuff. But also I love, I don't want to say classics, but like Casablanca I love. Rashomon by Kurosawa is one of my favorite films. Paris, Texas, actually, when the guys reviewed that on the Film Vault, that was the first time I watched it to prep for listening to it, and that is now one of my favorite movies. So I'm kind of all over the place. I saw a meme one time where it was like a Venn diagram of like one circle was like, you know, classics and art house films. The other one was like sci-fi movies and like B grade trash. And there was like the little intersection. It was like me. And I'm like, that's me. Perfect. You know, so I'm all over the place. I have a really wide kind of range and of flicks I like, you know?
Yeah, me too. And so, I guess that leads into, who do you find you align with more? That's something I ask everyone. Brian or Anderson? Do you, or are you like the Venn diagram and you're in between?
I guess I'm kind of in between. There are times that I love both of them passionately, and there are also times that I like hate them both passionately, just depending on the episode and depending what happens, you know? Yeah. I love Anderson's, I guess, intensity and his like, you know, direct love of movies, and he makes movies and all that stuff. But sometimes he can kind of, I don't know, be a little too intense, I guess. Especially if Brian's bringing something to the program and Anderson gets a little too excited, you know. But then also sometimes Brian is the same way, you know. Everyone jokes about his smugness and all that. But I guess I'd have to say maybe 50-50, or maybe even these days more like 55% Brian, 45% Anderson, if I'm like aligning one way or the other. With it used to be kind of reversed of that, but
okay.
Yeah, with movie taste, yeah.
So. And then, do you have a memorable Film Vault moment you can think of that like just sticks in your head, that like when you think of the Film Vault that makes you laugh or cry or happy?
I can think of a few, actually. I mean, I know every time you ask folks this question, like inevitably the big fight comes up. I think it was like in 2016 or something when Brian scared Baldy would. In fact, I was showing my girlfriend at the time, now wife, that episode. Because I was trying to get her to into podcasting, and she likes movies. And so I was like, babe, you know, check this podcast out. And it was that episode. And so she just kind of got turned off by it.
Oh my God.
She's like, did you just listen to these guys get really at each other's throats and like kind of start getting like, not even for show, but like, you know, it was a pretty emotionally charged argument they were having.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, not everyone is like this. So that one's definitely one. I'll also remember when Logan announced he was leaving. That was a big bummer because he was just, you know, my guy originally. And I love Avery now. Originally, though, I was a little hesitant on Avery just because I'm dumb and I'm like, my loyalty's to Logan, though he's not here anymore. Like, who's this guy trying to replace Logan? You know? But I really come around on Avery. He's great. But when Logan was leaving, that was a big thing too for me.
I find it, yeah, that's actually, it's so funny because if Logan never left, there would be no film vaulters probably. There'd be no me because that's when I started helping them and
Okay.
doing that stuff. But it is funny because the person I do my other podcast with, the Hollywood Persona, he runs the Film Vault Reddit page, and oh my God, the people over there when Avery first started, that was hell just listening to the complaining.
Really?
But now Avery misses an episode and people are like, "Where's Avery?" So it's
Yeah, yeah.
it just takes time. It just takes time for people to get used to somebody, right? Like, especially when you love the person before. I
Definitely.
love Logan because, and there was times when even they would try to get Logan to not talk as much, and I was always like, no, let him talk, because sometimes his views on some of the movies were like what us, sorry Anderson and Brian, but quote maybe younger generation were liking, right? Or into, and he
Yeah.
kind of had that streamline into what some of the younger people were watching. So I'm definitely right there with you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I'm at a point now. I feel almost guilty that I was kind of anti Avery at first. Sorry, Avery, if you're listening. Love you, dude. But I'm like,
Yeah.
dang it, this is so juvenile for you to like have that. It's like a playground thing. Like, no, my old friend who just moved away was better.
Yeah.
I can't have a new friend or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, yeah,
So
those are probably the biggest ones for me.
yeah, let's talk about the top five, because holy shit, this top five, like, I don't know, like, what you messaged me and said that Stabbings was sticking out to you, like it was the one that you thought, I gotta do this. And so I want to know why, because like, are you a horror fan? Are you just, did some really good ones pop in your head?
So yeah, so you sent me that very well done list that you created, and I was going through it, and so I made a list of all those. There's probably like 8 to 10 that I had on there, and Stabbings was one of them. And originally, Stabbings was kind of a lower, kind of ranked one for me. But then it just kept coming back to me as I was eliminating other ones, and I don't know. I felt it was kind of a challenge. I love horror. I know we kind of talked about that briefly when we were messaging each other.
Yeah.
And I love action too, and so that there's some like bleed over there. But mainly, I just kind of thought of it as a challenge because I shouldn't say resonate with Stabbings, but I don't think of Stabbings too often. So I thought, hey, you invited me to the show. Let's do
Right.
something different and kind of flex my memory of stuff, and create this list.
That's
So I guess
awesome.
it's a little bit of a challenge in itself. So yeah, that's kind of how I came about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, it's funny because you start, and I just, how I usually do it is I go through my letterbox. Sometimes I'll sort it by like a genre or something, and I'll go through, and I'm going through, and I'm like, and I'm starting to think to myself, wow, I really don't remember Stabbings that well. I'm having a hard time with this, but nope. I got a little farther down, and I was just like, oh my God, that one, that one, that one. I have like 20 also rans. Um, this one came to me, like, it took a while, but this one just came to me pretty good, and I, to the point where I almost put a tie at number 6, because there's one that I needed to have on my list, but I said nope, I'm gonna just bump it off, and I've got my top 5, and I love them. They're great. So yeah.
Hell yeah. Righteous,
what
man. Yeah, I
what
feel the
have
same way. Like it took me a second to get kind of in the zone. Like one jumped out at me, which is on my list. It's my number 2. But outside of that, I was just kind of racking my brain, and I don't know if you had this, but I guess my memory isn't as good as it used to be. But I would, for example, one that immediately jumped out at me, which was incorrect, and it was in the movie Drive when Bryan Cranston shakes, I forgot his name, Albert Brooks's hand at the end.
yes,
This
yeah,
might be a
yeah.
spoiler, but I thought that was a stab at first, and I was like, that's
Mhm.
going on the list. Then I watched the scene, it's a slash, and I'm like, dang it, like that's wrong, So then I kind of
Okay.
went down a rabbit hole of like, what is a stabbing, like
I
what are we
know.
using here,
I
Yeah,
literally looked it up. I looked up stabbing meaning on Google just to see if I could get away, because there was one that was definitely a slice across the neck that I wanted.
yeah.
There was another one that was like more of an impalement, you know.
So yeah, I had the impalement thing happen several times. Even this is really lame, but we've been talking for like a week now doing this,
Yeah.
and I called my dad on the phone, who is not a huge movie guy or anything. He's like, "Hey, what's going on, Dad?" Or he's, "What's going on, son?" And I'm like, "Oh, Dad, yeah, I'm just doing this. I'm actually going to be on this podcast, and we're talking about this, and I'm racking my brain, And so I asked him kind of, I'm like, "Do you think an impalement would count as a stabbing?" And it was just out of left field. And he kind of took a second. He's like, "I think, yeah." And I'm like, "Thanks, Dad," but yeah, I did the whole impalement versus stabbing thing as well.
I
Yeah,
think
one of mine might fall into impalement, but
yeah,
I
me
consider it
too.
more of a stab. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I my number 3 is could, but um I doubt the guys are ever going to do top 5 impalements. So, I mean,
mm,
I think if we threw a couple of impalements in here, we could be okay. Like the guys should do top
yeah,
5 like slices though, because the amount
yeah,
of
yes,
slices.
yeah. Even non fatal slices, in
Yeah.
like a knife fight or sword fight in movies. Or
Yeah.
honestly, after doing this research, there's probably enough impalements that you can make a pretty good impalement list as well.
For sure. For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
That's no, that's great. It sounds like we were like, where do you live? Which state are you in?
Oh, yeah, no problem. I live in Texas. It is super hot. I
Oh,
live in San Antonio right now, so kind of South Texas.
nice. You have like, I don't notice any drawl or anything, so I wouldn't have gleamed that from the combo, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I get that a lot. Whenever I'm out of state, people are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, wow, you don't sound like you're from there." And I'm like, "I assure you, I am." Whatever.
Here's my gun to prove it. No.
Yeah, right. I have a horse out back too. Whatever.
Right. I oh, now I forget where I was gonna say. I was saying I don't know. Whatever.
Oh, we're stabbings versus slicing versus impalements.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're going in that direction.
Someone,
Okay, cool.
everyone listening will know where I was, what I was saying. But oh, actually, you want to hear something really funny? When was this topic originally
Yes.
done? May 17th, 2017, and the flickfessions during that episode were Alien Covenant and The Last
Hey.
Laugh and a movie called Love. So those were the flickfessions that episode. I don't do
Right.
I don't reiterate their top 5 because if people want to hear it, they can go over the Film Vault and find that episode on their Patreon and they can listen and support the show. But that is when they did the episode, and that is what they flick fest. And so 2017, so just a couple years after you started listening. So yeah, Alien
Yeah,
Covenant.
absolutely. I like that. Just dovetails right back into to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, there is like 2 alien stabbings that I definitely thought of. One's more of an impalement. Um, are any on your list, or can I spoil them now?
I have no Alien
Okay.
franchise stabbings,
Okay, so the only
which
one
I think I have an idea of your impalement, but go ahead.
yeah, so Bishop in Aliens when the
Yeah.
Queen impales him, and then the only other thing I could think of was when Bishop is doing the hand thing with the knife,
Yeah.
and then he
Mhm.
accidentally nicks himself, and I was like, well, I can't do that. That's he's like, oh, usually I'm better than that, and then that's how
Yeah.
Sigourney, not Sigourney, Ripley, that's how she finds out. Blah 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 blah. But
Yeah.
that's how nerdy
I was
I
also
was.
no, I had several thoughts. We can talk Alien until the cows come home. For all I care,
Yeah.
I love this conversation.
Me too.
I thought about the start of Alien 3, where I believe didn't Hicks get killed off screen by getting impaled by like a piece of the spacecraft?
Yep.
Yeah. And then also I was thinking about getting clever and being like, well, if an alien, if they get you with, their mouth, is that a stab?
Yeah.
But I don't want to.
Is the chest burster, is that a stab since it's stabbing through you? No, no.
Yeah.
No, well, I'll definitely have to go through my also rans, and we can laugh at some of the ones that are probably impalements. But anyways, I always go first, so then you can have the pole position, the final position, if you're okay with that. And then, so my number 5, I have 3 on here that were ones that just came to me without me even like researching or like looking at movies. They just came to me and they stayed on my list. So, and one of those is my number 5. It is not the most recent on my list, but it is from a movie from 2022. And that is X. Ty West's X, the movie with Pearl, Mia Goth. I don't know if you've seen it, but there is a barn.
I haven't. I want to see Pearl, and
yeah. They're both great. And then Maxine apparently is coming out later this year, I think, which is the third one. But there is a scene where a gentleman is on all fours and he thinks he sees something through the barn, a hole in the barn, and so he kind of puts his eye up to the hole in the barn, and a pitchfork comes right through and kills him, and it's a really great scene, and I really loved it. That actor actually was on Grey's Anatomy. It took me forever to realize where I recognized him from. Martin Henderson, I think his name is. But great scene. It was a great kill. You could see it coming from a mile away, but it has not left my brain, obviously, because it was like it was the second one I thought of. So you definitely got to check out X and then Pearl. But yeah, so you're not.
I came close to renting X the other day, and I don't know why. I didn't think something came up, but I want to kind of not marathon, because I think they're both kind of relatively shorter films, but I want to watch both of those before Maxine comes out in theaters and catch it in theaters this year. Well, actually, first off, I do have a question. Since stabbings can also kind of lead to spoilers, how are you? I know you said gentlemen doing that. Should we leave out names of characters, or if it's an old enough movie, maybe not so much? How do you want to go about it? I only have one that takes place in the final act of the movie that I can dance around. But
yes,
how do you want to go about it?
As do I, and that is the only one that I'm going to dance around, and so maybe you just do the same with yours. My number 3 is the last 20 minutes of the movie. So and it's kind of the comeuppance, and I really wouldn't want to spoil that for somebody because it's a lesser known movie, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, just dance around it if you can. But the other ones, I mean, don't worry about it.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Then I can lead off with my number 5, and I'll give some more info, but this movie, came out decades ago now, so I don't know how much of a spoiler it is. But my number 5 is from the original Friday the 13th. Came out in 1980. It's the only horror movie that's going to be on my list. I know when we were talking, you were saying that you really like horror, so I wanted to get one in there. And this is one of the first ones that comes to my mind. But I figured you were going to kind of lean on a little more, and I wanted to get some other genres in there. But this one takes place about halfway through the movie, and it's when a character by the name of Jack, played by Kevin Bacon, meets his demise.
I watched this scene.
Yeah.
In prep, yeah.
Jack is, yeah, he's spending some time with his girlfriend, some personal private time. And then she leaves the cabin, and Jack grabs, I couldn't tell if it was a cigarette or a joint or something, but he's, going to relax. And then he's laying on his bed, and then all of a sudden a hand reaches out from under the bed and grabs him by the forehead, and then you hear a gurgling sound, and then an arrow comes through kind of right beneath his throat. It's more of a sternum, but and Jack can't really relax after that. But I did a little research on this, and I found it was kind of also a part of this that I find fun was the behind the scenes stuff. To make the shot, Kevin Bacon was crouching underneath the bed with two other people underneath, and it was just his head with a dummy that was kind of had makeup going up to make it look like his neck. And then the two guys underneath had an arrow they were going to shove through the dummy, and then a pump with a hose with fake blood kind of pumping up through the arrow wound. But the pump broke right when they were going to film. And this was in doing research of really, cheaply, quote unquote, cheaply done film for the time.
Yeah.
And so they didn't have the money to replace the pump. So they had the lower of the two guys in the totem pole under there, the assistant of the two, just put his mouth on the what's called the tubing to push the blood out and do it by mouth, which is why the blood kind of shoots out at not steady intervals coming out of Kevin Bacon's neck. It's because the guy was having to take a breath and then re-shoot it out afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
And clear the blood out in his mouth. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of fun too to learn. So I wanted to include that one on the list. Plus, it kind of launched the whole Friday the 13th franchise and really, talked about the whole slasher, or really revolutionized the slasher subgenre of horror flicks that really dominated the 1980s.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And it's such a interesting. It's the first Friday the 13th is so interesting because. No spoilers, but who the killer actually is and stuff like that, right? And that they use an arrow, to go through the bed. It's just, I know, sorry. It's just really interesting, right? It's really interesting because I watched that scene and I was like, oh, this is Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm like, no, that's Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street. So
yes, I had that same confusion. I was getting those two mixed up. Yeah.
I was like,
I'm glad to see that I'm not the only one.
No, when I was watching the scene, I'm like, why did he use an arrow if he could have just used his claws? And I'm like, oh, because this is Friday the 13th. Fuck, I'm an idiot. But no, we're both idiots now. So
yeah. And going back to what you said of the disconnect between what you think the killer is going to be, because Jason Voorhees is this larger than life pop culture figure we have now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it looks like we're about the same age. We didn't see this in theaters.
I'm actually 84.
Oh, okay. You look great for
Thank you.
Octogenarian, if that's correct. Yeah, but yeah. So that was a nice, pleasant surprise for me catching up with this, obviously, a year ago, but decades from when it came out, just to kind of see the original, movie and how it goes before it kind of goes into the more, traditional Friday the 13th structure of films.
100%. Yeah. No, no, that's great. I need to do a rewatch of all those, but I still haven't seen all the Nightmare on Elm Street, so I need to finish that series before I can go and do that, because but what do you got there? So you got Michelob Ultra, eh?
I haven't either. That's on my...
Sorry.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, Michelob Ultra. I drink either really, really light beer that tastes like water or heavy IPAs, And so I figured for this, time, I should probably go with the really watery beer, so I don't get too silly,
Yeah. So I'm kind of the same way. When I'm out somewhere, I have a gluten allergy, which is so sexy. So I try to stick to Corona because it doesn't really affect my gluten shit. And but when I go out, it's like, okay, what do you got on tap? And I'm usually something heavier, like but I just fucking love beer. So and you look like a lumberjack, so I can definitely understand. Now I know who you kind of remind me of. I don't know if you've ever gotten this before. Some of your characteristics look similar to like John Krasinski from The Office. I don't know if you've ever gotten that before, but like if Jim from The Office had a little bit more muscle, it would be you. Just saying.
Well, thank you. You don't have to lie for the people who can't actually see me. It's okay.
No, I don't know. I just saw some of your mannerisms. I just saw it. Ask your wife later. I don't know. But
yeah, sounds good.
Number 4 for me. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. Top 5 horror movies of all time. I don't think I've been able to include it on a list so far, and so I'm so happy to include 2005's The Descent on my list. There is a pickaxe scene, and it's not like the pickaxe you would think of like for that an old miner would use. It's like a pickaxe used for climbing or what do they call it, spelunking nowadays. And so if you've never seen The Descent, it is about I think 5 girls who go down, they go spelunking, and there may or may not be creatures down in the caves. And I absolutely fucking love this movie so much. And one of the main things about this movie is the character developments and the drama and stuff that unfolds, and they do it in such a great way. But there is an accidental death in the middle of this movie that still shocks me when I watch it. It's not that it shocks me, it's just so like, it's so well done. And this I won't say character names in case you haven't seen it, because I want anybody listening to see it. But a character thinks she hears something behind them, and she turns around and takes her pickaxe thing, and it goes right through this other girl's neck, ultimately killing this girl accidentally, but it kind of makes her a villain. And this is a really good movie, and I'm so happy that I found a place for it on a list.
I love that. That came up for me too in my research. I also really like this movie. And then also how you kind of mentioned, the axe, but it's more of a spelunky, like a hiking axe, like a utility tool.
Yeah.
It's not like what you would kind of think of like in My Bloody Valentine, like that kind of axe in a cave,
Very high tech.
Yeah. No, that's a good. Yeah, that's a great one. I like that.
I had to put it on.
Just missed my list. Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I dig.
So
that.
you're number 4.
So my number 4 is going to be a big shift from The Descent. This is actually from a comedy movie. I kind of wanted to get. Yeah. There's not a lot of comedic stabbings, and this is honestly a movie that I don't love. I like it okay, but this one scene always cracks me up. It's from Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky is attempting to come back into racing, and he has a bad crash, and he thinks that he becomes paralyzed from the waist down, but it's all in his head. And so his two, racing team partners, played by Michael Clark Duncan and John C. Reilly, come to visit him in the hospital while he's in a wheelchair. And Ricky, played by Will Ferrell, wants to prove to them that he is paralyzed. So he takes a knife and just plunges it right into his leg, and then realizes that he could stand and tries to get out, it stands up and he's happy and everything, but he can't get the knife out because it's lodged into his, I guess, femur or wherever your leg bone is. And so Michael Clark Duncan, oh man, I'm gonna start laughing talking about this. I'm a sucker for physical comedy or any sort of comedy where people get injured or things like that, like the Jackass movies or a Guilty Pleasure. I love those. But Michael Clark Duncan finds a second knife that he decides to use to try and pry the original knife out. So he starts really lightly stabbing the other knife wound around the wound and trying to dislodge it. So there's the initial stab of Will Ferrell stabbing himself, and then Michael Clarke Duncan trying to pry it out. Yeah, it just cracks me up. Anytime if this is close to this scene on TV, if I see it, I'll stop and try and watch it until this scene. I like this movie okay. I didn't like it as much as a lot of people do. I have no problem with Will Ferrell or any of the folks involved with this, but yeah, that stabbing scene just cracks me up. I love it so much. And to my knowledge, I can't think of any time Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby has come up on any list from the Film Vault, Film Vaulters, and so I figured, and then also try to get a comedic stabbing because there's not a lot of knife play in comedies, generally speaking. So yeah, I wanted to kind of highlight this little jewel.
There was I don't even have any comedic stabbings in my also rans. I honestly did try to think of some. I was like, oh, there's one scene from I can't remember the movie. I think it's Kangaroo Jack, and I thought, which I don't know if you even know what that movie is, but there's a scene in that where a guy gets a dart thrown into his head, and it's so funny, and the guy turns to him, he's like, "You got a dart in your head, you dumb shit," and I'll just never forget that. But I kept trying. There's so many comedic stabbings on the tip of my tongue or brain, but I can't think of them. I tried. I really did try. So I'm glad you have that on there. That is probably one of them because I just kind of looked it up and I'm like, yep, that was definitely one of the ones I was thinking of. So that's great.
Yeah, good pull with Kangaroo Jack, by the way. Have not thought of that movie since I was in I don't know, 5th grade or whatever it was when that came out.
Oh man, that is a favorite of mine for sure. Not a favorite of mine, but when I was a kid, I probably haven't seen it in 20 years. But when I was younger, we had the DVD, and it came with us in the DVD player. We had one of the vans with the DVD players, and it was just Kangaroo Jack. Yeah. So my number 3, this is my spoiler heavy one, so I really have to dance around it, which is fine. Also, can you believe that Michael Clarke Duncan's been dead for almost over 10 years now? Which is just
no, I cannot. It feels like that it was 2 years ago.
No, 2012.
That sucks. He was so good. I mean, I know it's just kind of beating a dead horse because I don't know a single person who dislikes Michael Clarke Duncan, but I mean, his comedic timing was great. He was killer in dramatic roles like The Green Mile. It's just, gone too soon, man.
Way too soon.
That sucks.
So my number 3 is a 2018 movie called The Nightingale. And it is directed by a female who I really love, who also did the Babadook. She directed the Babadook. Her name is Jennifer Kent. So she directed the Babadook, and then several years later, she came out with The Nightingale. And this movie is very dark, very dismal, very depressing. But I love it. It is. It's not an easy watch. And it's streaming on Tubi. I just found out last night because I wanted to find the exact scene, and I went to it. And yes, it is in the final 20 minutes, and somebody gets a very long, skinny spear, not impaled, but it's they're trying to stop the spear from going into their neck. But somebody is putting pressure on the other end of the spear, and you just watch it slowly go through his Adam's apple, and it is just, it stuck with me, but I had to figure out if I had to make sure it was from this movie. So I found it, and I scrubbed through the whole movie and I found it at the very end. Yeah, so The Nightingale, great movie, and really this is the one that you could say is a impalement because it happens kind of slowly, but to me it's a stabbing. So get over it, everyone.
I hear that. While you were talking, I just Googled The Nightingale, and just a Google page comes up, and then the first thing on People Also Ask is, how disturbing is The Nightingale? So that is it one of those kind of like hard to watch ones?
Yeah, the first like it's if I'm gonna relate it to any movie, it's like Straw Dogs or The Last House on the Left or maybe like Hills Have Eyes. It's like a revenge kind of thing, like something brutal happens at the beginning and so somebody takes revenge, and there's a great relationship formed between two unlikely people through the movie. I love it. Probably my top 100 movies for sure. And I know Anderson was just talking about it recently too, so maybe that's why I thought about it. But yeah, The Nightingale.
Oh,
so
sweet! I have not seen it. You said it's on Tubi.
yeah, I for some reason I thought it'd be on somewhere better. I know it was on Shudder for a while, but yeah, I found it on Tubi. So definitely everyone check it out. It's not an easy watch. It is not an easy watch. Sometimes the rape stuff is very hard for people, and I don't like it. But if it can lead to a good story and a good movie, then I can deal with it. As long as it's not too gratuitous, But you're number 3.
Yeah. So I'm going back into the 1980s. I guess some people might consider this a bit of a horror. I don't. I mean, it's got horror themes to it, but it's from the movie Predator, which I know you have also talked about in the past with, maybe we can talk off the air, but your love of Alien versus Predator, correct? That was that. Oh, man, you got a Yautja right there. Let's go.
Yeah.
But,
oh, did you? Okay.
But
did you listen to top 5 non-human characters yet? Non-human villains they did on the Film Vault a few weeks ago?
No, not yet. I'm hella behind, to be honest. Okay. I just started a work from home job, and so my normal podcast time is in the car. So I'm trying to like go on walks and stuff to catch up. So I'm a little behind on film. I'm a few weeks behind, but no.
I do the listener list, and one of the listener lists was Yautja, and but everybody obviously puts Predator, so I put Predator / Yautja, and Avery read it, and he's like, "What the fuck is that?" And Anderson and Brian, neither of them knew, and I'm like, "That's what they're called. I mean, they're not called predators." Anyways, my nerdy side came out. I should have just called it a predator and been done, but whatever. Yeah. Sorry, you're number 3.
No, there's the whole taxonomy and species and all that stuff, But,
yeah.
No, so this one does involve a character's death. So again, I'm going to try and talk gingerly, but also this movie came out in 1987, so I don't feel super bad.
Don't stress about it.
But all right, so this is involving the character Dylan's death, played by Carl Weathers. This movie, a little backstory for me, was shown to me at way too young of an age by my dad, who loved Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I watched this when I was like 8, like the hard R, version, getting terrified when Jesse Ventura is getting blown up and stuff. But anyway, I digress. Dylan, it's played by Carl Weathers. Like I said, he's going after another character who's kind of lost his cool. I think they say in the movie he's kind of going, for lack of a better term, insane. Yeah. He's just wanting to run after the predator and take him out. So he runs out and away from the group. So Dylan volunteers to go after him, kind of in a redemption kind of move, because earlier in the story he misleads the team to start this whole situation. So he decides to go after him. He comes across a clearing where he spots the other gentleman who has been killed by the predator. And the scene, I think, is really well shot for kind of a dumb 80s action movie. you hear this really loud like noise or like insect noise and like sounds of the jungle, and we get this kind of pseudo Dutch angle zooming in on Carl Weathers, and just it seems very disorienting with the camera changes, which I think is done to a really great effect, and feeling claustrophobic even though he's coming into this clearing. And Dylan sees the predator in his invisible form on a tree branch, so he pulls out his one of his two submachine guns and starts firing. The predator shoots him with his arm blaster pod thing and shoots his arm clear off. And his arm. Just a dumb part of this movie is Dylan's arm still holding the trigger down, if you remember, and it's like firing on the ground.
Yes.
It's a great shot cinematically, but like real life physics, that would never happen. But whatever, we're in a sci-fi movie.
I love that kind of stuff.
So then the predator gets on the. Oh, I love it too. Yeah. So the predator on the ground, he's charging Dylan, and Dylan thankfully has a second submachine gun on his back, and he has one arm, one gun, so he takes it off, and he's trying to get it out in time to shoot him. And the predator decides to stop him from doing that, and reveals two rather large blades on his forearm. And judging from the size of the predator and in relation to everyone else and the size of his forearm, I would guess that those blades are like 1.5 feet long or something, you know. And he uppercuts Dylan with these blades. And I originally thought this was an impalement. I could have sworn in my memory that it comes out Dylan's back, but it doesn't. But he uppercuts him and lifts him off the ground. So I'm assuming it's going in through his like stomach and causing catastrophic organ damage to multiple different organ systems in his body, killing him. But another fun fact about this is the first time that we see the Predator's arm blades. Before that, he's only killed people either off camera or with his blaster, if I remember correctly, and kind of doing a rewatch recently, which, obviously became a lot bigger in subsequent films and spin-off series and things like that. But every time I watch this movie, still to this day, I think like, Dylan can make it this time, like I'm wishing him to make it. I'm like, come on, Dylan, if you get that other gun, man, you can take out the Predator, you're going to be good, but it gets right there. So number 3 for me is Dylan's death in Predator.
That's great. Don't let me forget. You got to send me this list later, just so I can have it in my notes. But anyways. Yeah, so no, that's a great one. I love all the Predator movies. I mean, I love the Predator series. To me, has more bad movies than the Alien series, and people could definitely disagree with that. But for my money, I'd rather sit and watch like the worst Alien movies than the worst Predator movies. Like, I'm not a fan of Predator 2, really, nor am I a fan of. The Predator. Predator 2, I need to rewatch it. I've only seen it once because the first time I watched it, I don't know, I was a little turned off, I guess. It just didn't
It's a big departure. They tried to do I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going, you go.
Oh, I was going to say it's a big departure. They tried to do the whole branding of, he's in the concrete jungle now, being in Los Angeles. But I also kind of, to your credit, or to your point, I didn't like it the first time I watched it. And I guess it's just been, my inhibitions have been beat down over the years. And now I really enjoy it. I'm a huge Bill Paxton fan. That guy, another guy we lost too soon. I love me some Billy P. My wife and I call him Billy P. And then Danny Glover in that, playing just like I was going to say an R-rated version of Roger Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon, but those are R-rated too, but more of like a hard-edged detective version who doesn't give a shit in that. So I like it okay, and then kind of building on the lore that comes back around in Prey, which how do you feel about Prey?
It's my favorite Predator movie, so And
okay, I'm glad. I love Prey. I love at the end of Predator 2 that kind of tie-in that you see at the end of Prey, that giving stuff away.
Yeah,
I love that. Sorry, we're getting way off topic, but man, I have not watched the Navajo dubbed version for Prey. I want to so bad. I'll probably do it this week now that I'm talking about it. But
I need to do that as well.
Cherokee dubbed. I apologize if I'm getting the language wrong, but I was so pleasantly surprised with that. But But
Yeah.
yeah, I also agree with you too. Of there are more bad movies in the Predator franchise than the Alien franchise for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, look at us. Oh my God, we're going back. We're going back down this road. But I mean, a bad Predator movie or a bad Alien movie, I'll take them any day. I really don't care. Those are just so my style, and I love aliens or creatures or that kind of thing, and they just seem to do it so well. So even I ended up rewatching The Predator, and while it still isn't great, I liked it more on a second viewing than I did the first time. I remember leaving the theater just shaking my head, but uh people are gonna think
that final line, I'm pretty sure it's the final line where he goes like, I hope you have this suit in a 32 long or whatever. I'm like, that's where we're ending this, man.
yeah,
Like, that's such a corny. Not that these are
yeah,
like, the bastions of cinematic, masterpiece or whatever, but
yeah,
like, it's like, oh God, that's,
really, yeah,
I don't know. I needed to rewatch The Predator. I haven't seen it since I saw it in theaters and just kind of,
yeah.
I don't know. I was kind of disappointed by it, like most folks, I guess.
I just don't think the humor worked, but and that can really turn me off when the humor is just so ugh. But anyways, my number two is from a horror movie for sure. It is a Korean film called I Saw the Devil. And it is, oh my gosh, I had who directed it right here. Hold on. I Saw the Devil. It's one of the best, what's his name? Kim Ji Woon. And written by Park Hoon Jung. Yeah. Yeah? I don't know. I just work here. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm seeing.
Yeah,
Kim
Ji-woon Kim.
Right.
And he also directed well, he just directed Cobweb, which came out this year, but I haven't seen that yet. But he is great. He's been trying to get, but he did I Saw the Devil, and maybe that's sorry. Okay, I'm getting off topic. But anyways, I Saw the Devil. There is a scene in a taxi that is just insane. There's probably, I was going to count the amount of stabbings in the scene. I would say there's probably 40 stabs, I think, that happen in the scene. Basically they're driving along and they're driving. Okay, let me set it up a little bit better. Jesus, Mitch. There's a guy on the side. There's a guy on the side of the road, and this taxi comes up, and he picks up the guy. And the guy that he picks up is our main character, who's going through some stuff. Which this movie's really, really deep, really hard to explain. It's a very cat and mouse. It's so good. It's so intense though, and very rated R. But he hops in the taxi, and the taxi driver's all like laughing and blah blah blah. Well, this taxi driver had something to do with this guy's wife's death, and the guy in the back of the taxi had something to do with it as well. And so they're driving, and the taxi driver is just laughing, just having the greatest night of his life. And the our main character, he says, he just starts laughing because he's like, yeah, you really shouldn't have picked me up. And he pulls his hood back, and and then he takes his knife out, and oh my gosh, he just starts stabbing the two guys, like, like stab, stab, stab. And then in the back seat, stab, stab, stab. And it's a really intense, really well done scene. I probably gave a little bit away there, but the movie has so much more to it than just that scene. That scene will definitely stick with you, but like it did for me. But yeah, I Saw the Devil is 2010 movie, and it's just as good as any Korean horror movie you would see today. I just watched it last year for the first time, I think. So definitely check it out.
Sweet. I have not seen it. I know the guys have talked about it before.
Yeah.
On Film Vault, and it's been on my. I know it's streaming somewhere because it's on one of my watch lists saved. I just haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, I love me some just really Asian cinema, but horror especially, and then action too. I mean, I don't know if you follow a lot of the not to go down too much of a rabbit hole, but like Indonesian horror, Indonesian action. There's a director I really love called his name is Timo Tjahjanto, I believe you pronounce the last name. I think he has a deal with Netflix because a lot of his the last 3 of his movies have come out straight on Netflix, and he does either horror or hardcore action, almost borderline horror. Like there's this one action movie called The Night Comes for Us, which actually stars 2 of the guys from The Raid, if you're a fan of The Raid, and has that kind of action. But just the amount of in fact, I thought about it for this list because there's a lot of knife wounds and knife, stuff. Sorry if you can hear my cat; she's playing with the blinds.
That's okay.
I don't have the camera here, but he's great, and I thought about including him in that. But yeah, I digress. I love Asian cinema for that sort of stuff, horror and action. It's just they're crushing it.
Yeah, for sure. So you're number 2. Yeah, you're number 2.
Yes, sir. My number 2. I mentioned the movie earlier because it's my favorite movie of all time. Gonna have to go with Goodfellas. There's a couple stabbing scenes in Goodfellas. I know a lot of people talk about the opening scene with Billy Bats in the trunk. That also involves a shooting,
Yeah.
But mine that really sticks out with me, and this is the first one I thought of, or maybe the second one I thought of when we first started talking about stabbings, was Maury's death. Who is the wig salesman. He's involved in the Lufthansa heist, which takes place, I guess, about 2/3 of the way through the movie, a little over halfway. And all the guys are outside of Pesci and Robert De Niro are spending all their money and not laying low at all like they all agreed upon. So Robert De Niro decides to kill everyone. And so you see Maury's death coming, but it's still really violent and really sudden. He's walking out with Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro and a third gentleman. I can't remember his name. His name's Frankie Carbone in the movie. And they all sit down and they're talking about going to a diner. They're like leaving a bar or something. They had a few drinks or going for a late night snack. And in the middle of saying something, you just hear this noise. And it cuts to a super close up of Joe Pesci with an ice pick sticking out the back of, I'm not a doctor, but I'm assuming like the brainstem area of Maury. And I remember that so clearly as just a sudden, shocking, violent end to a movie, or not to a movie, but to a character in a movie. And then I also read, can't remember now, memory, man, it's terrible these days. I can't remember if I was actually speaking to someone or if it was like a Reddit post or something. But it was someone who worked in a spinal cord injury center or something, like a physician or a nurse. And they were talking about this scene and saying that, well, depending on where, hypothetically, in this fictional world, Joe Pesci stabbed him, he could still be alive and just permanently paralyzed, but he can hear everything, which kind of also adds a level of horror because I was watching the scene after, and De Niro gets out of the car. He's like, I don't care what you do, chop him up and get rid of him. So Maury's like hearing all of that, just adding to the horrificness of this, violent demise that he met. So yeah, I love Goodfellas, and this just jumped out at me, getting a nice ice pick stabbing sequence or scene on the list. So I had to include it at number 2.
There we go. We both got some sort of pick on our list.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I'm glad you included it. Definitely the first stabbing scene with Billy Bats. That was the one that came up in a lot of my research. But I wouldn't have thought of that one. That's a great one, and definitely harsh.
Yeah, it's rough. Sorry, my cat is being a little jerk. Come on, cat.
Oh, it makes me want a cat again, but no.
Oh, are you used to having? In fact, I'm
I
going to take her
used
out of
to,
the room
yeah.
if you want to fill the time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Give me 2 seconds.
Thanks for listening to Radio Silence, Radio FM with Mitch Burns and the douche. Not I don't know.
Hey, it was good. It was a good plug.
Yeah, that was bad. So my number one, I probably should have just put this lower on the list and put one of the other ones up there, because this is from a 2023 movie that I don't know if you've seen yet, but it's the first one that came to mind, and it just kept coming, and I kept thinking about it, and I was like, it's such a great scene that I think they even used it in the Red Band trailer for 2023's Sisu. There is.
Haven't seen it yet. Dang it,
Okay.
man. It's so funny. I almost watched this last night. I saw
Really?
that. I think it's streaming on Amazon Prime now, or rentable at least on Amazon
Yes.
Prime. And I came so close, but I was like, no, like I don't want to cloud my brain with anything that could have any last minute items, on it, because I had my top 5 solidified.
Well, that's good, because then now we don't have any crossover, because if you had seen this, you might have, because this scene, even though I know I think they showed in one of the Red Band trailers, essentially they're making fun of this guy. He's got 2 bags full of gold, and they're going to kill him and steal his gold. Well, he takes out this huge knife, and he just turns around, and it just goes right through like the temple and out the other side, and it just happens so quick and so sudden. I've seen this movie 3 times now. I love it. It'll definitely be in my top 5 of the end of the year for sure. And this is probably the most recent of a movie I will ever have on a list, but anyone who's seen the movie, you will remember this scene, and that scene will stick with you, because it's literally the first violence we really see from the character, who you don't know anything about, and he is he's kind of an older man, so he could just be this meek old man, and all of a sudden he just starts this violent scene, and it is kind of the start of a bomb that just doesn't, like the start of what am I trying to say? Of a, like a wick that just won't end. Like it just lights the fuse. That's what I'm trying to say. It just lights the fuse, and the rest of the movie is balls to the wall, crazy, and yeah. So if you haven't seen Sisu yet, definitely go see it. I know I literally heard that it is now streamable somewhere. So if you want to talk about your number one, I will figure that out and let everyone know in a second.
Absolutely. And you've sold me on it even more now.
Watch.
My number one, this was it kind of came to me late, but once I thought of it, I love this movie. It had to be my number one. It's from Blood Simple, the very first Coen Brothers movie from 1984. It's also Frances McDormand's first acting role, I believe, at least on a motion picture.
Really?
And yeah. It's a nice neo-noir. Reading up a little bit more about it, some people say there's some horror elements, and there is some imagery that's kind of like, whoa. I don't really consider it anywhere near horror. It seems more like a neo-noir. But it's a fantastic movie. It's a movie. I don't want to spoil too much about the plot, but if anyone wants to watch it, it's just a movie about misunderstanding and miscommunication. And if you watch it, you will totally understand what I mean by it. But the actual stabbing sequence, there's a private investigator played by Emmett Walsh. If you know him, he's a longtime character actor.
Yeah.
Who in the second half of the movie is after a few characters, one being Frances McDormand. And he has her cornered in her apartment, or actually, I can't remember if it's her apartment or just an apartment that she's in. But she runs to the bathroom and barricades herself in there, and thankfully is able to slip out through the window into an adjacent apartment's window into that bathroom, like they're kind of right next door to each other. He breaks in, and he figures out that she must have jumped through into the next window. So he, starts reaching his arm around from one window to the other to try and, thinking about it now, it doesn't really make much sense what his goal was outside of just feeling if she was right there. But
Right.
he has his face next to the wall, and because the window is right next to the wall at like a 90-degree angle, and he is reaching around, and Frances McDormand is in the room, and she slams the windowsill down on his wrist, and then just stabs a knife through his hand and then twists it, but it goes all the way through and pins his hand down to the windowsill.
Oh my gosh.
And so then he's trapped there, with his arm or outside of the building into another one. And I won't go too much more into what happens to either of these two characters, because this one is taking place in the last like 20 minutes of the movie.
Okay.
But there's a lot going on in it. I know a lot of the Film Vault listeners and Film Vaulters, I'm sure, big Coen Brothers, fans. I am, and I love Blood Simple. I hate that it took so long for me to kind of, find this movie and watch it. And it was kind of a weird, happy accident coincidence, filmed all around where I grew up in Central Texas. And
wow.
I learned that after the fact. I don't know if you've had any of these where you recognize scenes shot in areas near where you're from, and for me, growing up in Central Texas, it's not super often, but I was like, I feel like this is the region where I lived, and I looked it up and it was. So it also kind of hits home a little bit for me as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Blood Simple.
This is one of the few Coen Brothers I haven't seen. So
okay. Oh man, yeah, it's a fun time.
I definitely need to. I'm kind of making my way through their movies, anyways. But that's a really good pick. I didn't expect that to be your number one. Who doesn't love the Coen Brothers, right?
Yeah, I agree, and I love just in general seeing like the first movies of directors and kind of seeing how, or just their first works, even if it's like music videos or television, and seeing how. A lot of the times the seeds of ideas and stuff that comes out later, is kind of planted right there, and how it kind of grows throughout their career. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too. Well, good list. That was great. That was a really good list.
Thank you.
I got a listener list. I posted yesterday in the Film Vault fan page. That is a Facebook group on Facebook. So anybody, if you want to join that, you can see where I post. And there was definitely a good top five. So the number 5 is from Chopper, which I haven't seen, but apparently there's a good stabbing scene in Chopper.
That came up in research for me. Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I saw it come up when I was doing research.
I know I need to see it, but I will. Pulp Fiction is number 4. The hypodermic needle scene that came up in a lot of my research as well.
Yeah, same here. I was thinking about including that because and maybe you can think of another one, but I was thinking like that might be the only stab that is trying to like do positive medical, have a positive medical outcome, versus a negative. Yeah.
I have another needle one of my also rants, but number 3 is 7, the he made me fuck her scene. I don't know if you remember the suit. Yeah. And
is that that's not on camera though, is it?
No.
Isn't that off camera that we?
It is off camera, yes, but we do see a picture of the device, but almost like a saw trap if you like really think about it. But number
Very
2 is obviously, and I'm so glad this is represented, is Psycho. The shower scene, iconic, obviously. And the number 1 with the most votes was Saving Private Ryan, which came up on a lot of my research and stuff. But when Private Mellish, played by Adam Goldberg, is stabbed silently and slowly, it is a very memorable scene. So that is the number 1. So do you have any also rans? Do you have any other ones?
Yeah. a couple of them were talked about just now. I was thinking Psycho originally. I just love Psycho. I love Hitchcock. I mean, it just especially for that time.
Oh
I
yeah.
know I'm getting outside of the stabbing scene, but like shifting it up so much when that happens because she's our main character for the first act. Was
Yeah.
kind of bold for 19. I think it was 60. It came out, but that was there. Saving Private Ryan, of course. The Hunted. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a William Friedkin movie, I believe. Came out in like '03 with Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro.
Oh yeah, I love that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So the fight scene at the end kind of culminates in a dual stab that I like quite a bit. Yeah, and then the hypodermic needle was one as well I was thinking of, and then there was a whole bunch that we kind of talked about that I feel like kind of go towards more impalements than stabbing, so I'll kind of leave them off. But yeah, those are the big ones that kind of jumped my mind.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go through. I have about 10 here that like literally almost made the list, so I'm going to say them.
Sweet. Let's hear them.
So, yeah, my number 6 would have been I almost had it tied with my number 5 was Stu and Billy stabbing each other in Scream to make it look like they weren't the killer. Sorry, spoilers for Scream, but that is one of the most that is a comedic horror movie stabbing scene, which it should have been my number fucking 1, but anyways. Also
I almost included. I'm sorry.
No, go.
I was going to say I almost included. I thought of that one. I also thought of the opening sequence with Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
At that, I thought of that as well. Scream lends itself very well to stabbing lists in my research.
Yeah. Hence why the spinoff in the movie is just called Stab.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Remember, there ends up being like 8 Stab movies, and it's so meta.
Yeah.
So the Dark Knight pencil scene obviously came to mind. There are 2 Lord of the Rings scenes that I could think of. One is when Frodo is stabbed by one of the Witch Kings, or the Ring Race at the time, I think they're called. And then in Return of the King, when Eowyn stabs the Witch King in the face. And that is, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so those are the 2 that I would thought of. Almost went with a lightsaber stabbing. I wanted to put Han Solo getting stabbed by Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens. And then this is kind of an impalement. Green Goblin gets stabbed by his own machine in Spider-Man. And in Logan, there's so many really great, he's got the adamantium claws or whatever they're called, and he's got so many great scenes where he's putting his claws through heads, and him and Laura, it's really great. Scream 2, getting stabbed through the ear, and then the Lovely Bones. If you've ever seen that, the icicle scene, and then
heavy movie.
Yeah, very, very heavy. And then finally, Final Destination 2. It is a scene where an airbag goes off and a woman is killed by, and
it took me a second to get there, but I remember immediately what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's probably more of an impalement, but that scene is very, that scene has stuck with me my entire life. That one, and then I was also thinking of the nail gun death, which I think happens in Final Destination 4, maybe 5. Yeah. They're in a construction, 4. Yeah, they're in a construction,
like a Lowe's kind of area or Home Depot or something, right? Yeah.
So I was thinking of that one as well, but that's it. That I know I always have a huge also rans, but that's.
My bad. I just thought of 3 more when you were talking just now of my also rans, and I got to give a quick shout out
to.
Have you seen Ma Rainey's Black Bottom?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
at the end, there's a if I'm remembering correctly, there's a stabbing sequence with Chadwick Boseman involved in it. It's at the very end. I really liked that movie. I know.
Me too.
I feel like it kind of came and went, maybe just because it was a Netflix original. I liked that quite a bit. Hopefully, I'm correct about that. If it has just going off memory, because if not, I'm going to look like a jackass. But
I mean,
also,
it didn't like wow me like it did some people, but yeah, it's definitely a really good movie. I think a lot of the talk about that movie kind of came around him being nominated because he died and he should have won, people say, right? So the movie kind of got wrapped up in all that, unfortunately. But yeah, sorry, cut you off there.
I really thought that was his best performance too. Again, another person who's gone too soon, but
Yeah.
I remember being pleasantly surprised by that. But yeah, he's involved in a stabbing at the end. And then also, I got to go dumb action movie. I grew up loving Steven Seagal when I was like 13. So Under Siege has quite the knife fight at the end between Tommy Lee Jones and Steven Seagal that involves a fatal stabbing at the end of a character that I will remain nameless. But that's a good one. And then also Aguirre, The Wrath of God. It kind of took place off camera, so I didn't really want to include it. But it was a great one. I'm a big Werner Herzog fan. And it ended up being, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it ended up being it's like this a bunch of Spanish conquistadors and like the jungles of the Amazon in like 1590. And so they come across these indigenous folks who like come up to them and on this boat, because they're on a big, huge raft life, kind of houseboat thing that's going down the Amazon River. And a priest is there, a Catholic priest, and he's like, "Oh, I'm here to teach you about the Word of God." And they were just confused by the Bible, and they pick it up and they kind of, I can't remember what it is exactly. They like try to listen to it and then put it on the ground, and then the priest is like, "They're sent by the devil." So they just murder them really quickly with swords because it takes place back in the day. But I remember it being so dramatic from going from, "Hey, we're going to teach you about Catholicism," to put to death. It was just a quick back and forth.
What movie is this?
It's called Aguirre, The Wrath of God.
Okay.
I want to say it's on like Canopy if you're interested. It was came out in the mid-70s by Herzog. It's a trip. It's I really enjoy it. If you like him, his kind of directing style.
Kind of a blind spot for me is Herzog. I think I've only seen Grizzly Man, to be honest. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, I'm a fan of his. Both, his actual, like, I shouldn't say actual because documentaries are, films too. But I love his documentaries and his like feature films that are, scripted. So, I'm a big fan of his. And then also you mentioned one too, Willem Dafoe and Spider-Man. Another one I forgot about until just you mentioned it, and I remember doing a lot of research about that too. But yeah.
I was just going through my movies and I saw Spider-Man. I'm like, no, and then I'm like, oh my god, that just always got me, and but yeah, and I also thought about the Texas Chainsaw getting put on the hook, but I guess that was more of an impalement.
So hardcore to watch, man.
Yeah.
I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
Me too. Oh yeah, that's
the original. One of my all-time favorite, like top 25 movie. The first, like from 19,
top 10 horror for me for sure. It's one of the few horror movies that like actually scared me. So if a movie can actually scare me, it goes right up there. But you know what I really, really wanted to have on my list, but it is a slice. It is definitely a slice. And that is in The Invisible Man, the dinner scene. If you've seen The Invisible Man.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what
Slice, though.
Yeah. 100% a slice. But she's sitting there having dinner with her sister, and all of a sudden, that shocked me beyond belief. So I was like, I immediately thought of that one, and then I was like, fuck, can't use that. So yeah.
Another one that came up to me too, since you're speaking slices, and now I feel like we're just going back and forth coming up with new stuff.
Yeah.
But in Nightmare on Elm Street, when I think it's the first one, maybe the second, and they're trying to rescue someone in the dream, but Freddy has him, and they're in real life, and he starts like carving into their chest, like, come get him,
Oh,
bitch, or whatever.
yes,
I was
yes,
like,
yes.
that's not really a stab though, but it's a slice, but it's kind
Yeah,
of hardcore. That was
yeah.
another one that came up for me.
Well,
Yeah.
you, sir, now the privilege of coming on the Film Vaulters is that you get to assign me a movie, any movie you want. Um, so what's your pick?
Sweet. Well, you said you haven't seen Blood Simple. I'd say you should watch that. I
All
really like
right.
that movie. I know it's streaming somewhere. I think it's either on Netflix or HBO Max or just Max now if you
Yeah.
have that.
I
But I know it's
don't.
streaming somewhere.
That's awesome. I will watch that and I will review it on the next Film Vultures episode after this one comes out. On this
Sweet.
one, I will be reviewing Bruce Perky had me watch Go, Sarah Polly's
Oh,
Go. So I will be
such a fun
watching.
one.
Oh yeah, okay. So I will be.
If you haven't watched it yet?
I haven't watched it yet. No, I'm gonna watch it and then I put that in at the beginning. So I'm gonna
Gotcha.
watch that shortly. 1999, I think.
Yeah, I really like Go. I'm excited to hear your thoughts about it
Okay.
because I know some folks don't like it. More folks that I know like it than don't like it, and
Okay.
it feels very of its time, but it's enjoyable. I
So
think you'll
that'll
have a good time
be
with it.
yeah. So that'll be reviewed on this episode, and then Blood Simple will be reviewed on my next episode, and I think that'll be with Alex Simpson. Will be my next episode. I'm supposed to be recording with him. He is in Alaska right now, so we were supposed to record, but yeah. So, do you have any plugs? Is there anywhere you want anybody to follow you, or your letterboxed, or something like that?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Daily Grind. My last name is Griner, so it's DAILYGREIND because I did a little play on words with my last name. Fun. But you can follow me there. I have a letterbox. My letterbox is linked to there.
Cool.
I just love talking about movies and also like I don't know baseball and like my collegiate athletic program for my university. So
Nice.
if you're into some light sports and mainly movies, give me a follow. I'll follow back. Whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
More the
Cool.
merrier.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. So I just yeah, my I you can obviously follow me at just go to Linktree / the Film Vaulters, and you'll find all of my links there. And obviously we are on Facebook and Instagram. And listen to the Film Vault 2 episodes a week, or sign up for their Patreon. I just want to thank my guest today, Joseph. I keep wanting to call you Jeremy. I don't know why I wrote Jeremy somewhere, but
No worries.
Joseph,
Yeah,
thank
you
you.
can call me. You can call me Joe. Most people call me Joe anyway.
Oh,
So
okay. See,
even
your
easier.
the way we've been contacting your Instagram is Joseph, and then your
Yeah.
email was Joseph, and then you popped up here, and it was like Joe, and I'm like, oh fuck, now I gotta call him Joe.
My bad.
No,
I like to keep people on their toes. Friends can call
yeah,
me Joe. No,
no,
no problem.
I'm usually a full name kind of person, but then when people call me Mitchell, I'm like, wait, what the fuck? So
Yeah, that's not me. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no, who? Yeah, so anyways, thank you. Thanks to my guests. Thanks, Joe. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for listening. This has been another episode of the Film Vultures, the bi-weekly sister show to the Film Vault. Give us a follow, and we will have another episode out in 2 weeks. Thank you. Okay. I'm gonna hit